Okay, we're here with the filmmaker, Beadie Finzi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's Beadie. You can say it any way you like.
Oh, Beadie. Oh, Beadie Finzi. Okay. So, unfortunately, Beadie wasn't able to join our screening tonight live. So I pre-recorded these question and answers, and I hope this will still give everyone an insight into the film. Beadie, what do you look for in a good documentary, and what was it about this story that told you that this could be a good documentary?
I guess the number one clue I look for is about a story that captures transition and change. Those are some of the most essential ingredients of a great documentary film. And with this film, I guess there was a kind of big picture and a little picture. The big picture was Brazil. You know, a remarkable country in the grip of enormous flux and change, a country riven by deep divides in terms of race and class and wealth, and yet a country undergoing a metamorphosis in terms of wealth and development. And that makes for a very interesting landscape. And within that then was to identify a family or a group of families going through enormous change themselves. And so those were the essential ingredients there that were really interesting to me.
Okay. And how did you get involved with this project?
About 4 or 5 years ago, a producer came to see me and called Georgia Savio, and said she wanted to get involved and make a film in Brazil. And we chewed over ideas for 2 or 3 years until she came back and told me about Centro da Dança and the work of this woman, Marisa. And it didn't take long before I was like, this is it. This is the one. This is a woman making a remarkable difference in the community. And when I had the chance to meet that top class, if you will, the class that was going to graduate in their final year, and to see Irlan and Isabella, it was a no-brainer. You knew immediately these were 2 extraordinary young people, and no matter what happened to them in that year, that theirs was going to be an adventure that we'd want to go along with.
Okay. What was it like to make this film in an unfamiliar language? What challenges did this present? It
was interesting. I could understand a lot of what was going on. I just wasn't so competent at speaking in Portuguese. But I worked very closely with the assistant producer, Christina Daniels, who was wonderful, and she was my ears and eyes. So we'd film in a very small crew. I'd be shooting, and she would be recording sound. And our kind of ritual every day was the same. I would prepare quite closely what I wanted from particular scenes and particular interviews. And we'd sit very close together while I was filming, and I would pass questions out, and then she would ask them, and then she would feed them back round. And it sounds a little clunky, but actually we developed a very easy method of working. And as I said, it began as something I was quite frightened of, and by the end I actually felt very comfortable and could in fact intuit a lot of what was going on, and intuit a lot and watch a lot more actually, what people were looking like and how they were feeling. It sort of provoked a different set of senses in a way.
What was it like to make a documentary where the narrative of the story is changing and unfolding right before your eyes?
I don't think I've ever made a film any other way, and that's the thrill of observational documentary filmmaking. You start out with some essential great ingredients of a protagonist probably going through some period of transitional change, and you don't know how the story is going to fold. In this particular case, I've made a few films, so I had some clues as to the kind of trials and tribulations that could befall them either way. So I kind of had an either-or scenario. And I actually drew a little sketch about 6 months before we went into production, and funny enough, that little timeline remained actually pretty faithful to what happened. But yeah, I mean, I love that about documentaries. I love the uncertainty. I love the fact you never quite know the twists and turns, and you have to be ready to respond to your character's situations. That's one of its best assets, its best features, the unpredictability.
What was it like to film in so many tough areas around Rio?
It was quite tough, and I'm very, very proud to say that in over a year of filming in those environments, in Complexo Dalmau in particular, we were completely safe, and we never lost any equipment, and my crew, myself and my crew, and the families involved remained completely safe. And that's again testament largely to the great negotiating skills of Christina Daniels, who worked long and hard to ensure our safe passage in and out of Complexo, which was not a small thing. I don't know, I think I kept a very healthy respect all the way through. I think the danger comes when you become very blasé about those places. Truth is, there is incredible, violence and threat of violence at all times. But I think being calm and remaining watchful and obeying the rules, and, we made it in and out of there safely, and I'm very proud of that.
I understand that you and the producers spent nearly 2 years casting Ilan and Isabella. What made you decide on these two characters? What made them stand out?
It was two things. First of all, their dancing. I mean, as dancers, even as young people, 16, 17 years old, which is how old they were when we first met them. They were both very charismatic. Again, I've made some dance films before, so I have some knowledge and experience in this area. And, they could hold a room. They could hold a room, even in rehearsals, even just fooling around. You could see the effect that they would have on a group of people. And then more than that, though, as individuals and as human beings, I just thought they were both gorgeous people in very different ways. Ilan in some ways a very private and reserved young man who was only safe and open when he was in the dance environment. Isabella, much more the showwoman, the clown of the group. But they were very charismatic, and that's how I knew. It was the combination of both those things coming together. And also, sorry, I may add, Marisa in the setting of the dance school too. Those were the essential ingredients. It was the triumvirate of her as the kind of mentor and the guiding force, and these two, wonderful young people who were in their final year.
Can you talk about the challenges that race and class presented for Ilan and Isabella?
Well, I think I state it in the film, albeit maybe quite quietly. I mean, I don't underline it, but it was. You cannot. It's impossible to underestimate the extent of that challenge, particularly for Isabella as a young woman, wanting to do an art form which, even in the North and the West, is still very much the preserve of middle-class white young people. I mean, let's be clear. This is not something that's specific to Brazil, but there is real and profound racism within Brazil. I was discussing this with a Brazilian friend actually just the other night, and she was laughing about the fact that they have, just like the Inuits have about 50 different words for snow, they have about as many names for the different kind of colour skin that you can have, from brown to light brown to even lighter brown, and so on and so forth. And while they do it with enormous good grace, it has real implications, it has real impact on what your expectations are, what your aspirations are, and how you are pigeonholed. And what I loved about these two young people is the fact that they never let that impede them in any way whatsoever. Their colour be damned. They were going to do what they were going to do. And that was very unusual, very special. And, that spirit, without question, contributed to their success.
Isabella also has to deal with the reality that classical ballerinas everywhere are expected to be unnaturally skinny. When I saw her, I thought, do the judges want her to be skin and bones? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, again, this is a standard requisite throughout this particular art form worldwide. This is not particular to Brazil or indeed the competitions that we showed in the film. A beautiful classical body there is a certain stereotype